Harry, you're very welcome to Dublin. I know you spent a bit of time over here already because I've just seen episode 1 of AIB's Toughest Rivalry. Question I always have when we see something like this, like before you arrived in West Cork for the first time, what, if any, knowledge did you have of Gaelic football?
No knowledge. No, it was... I actually went to watch a team in London train. I had a friend of mine, and I said, I'm going over, and he said, I've got a pal of mine who runs a team in London, so they let me go and watch a training session. But that was just, it was training, you know, I'd never actually seen a game. So it was all new to me. But I must admit, I loved it. When I saw it, I loved it. I thought it was a great game.
And your first experience of West Cork, like it's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. What did you make of that when you arrived?
Oh, fantastic. I had a great couple of days, you know, and met so many nice people. And but, you know, everybody that plays the game as well, I mean, they all play for the love of the game. There's no one getting paid. They all just turn up and play and come travel long distance to train, some of the boys. It was amazing, really. And but it's all part of that. The whole of the team is everything in the area.
It's the community, yeah.
It's a big part of the community, isn't it?
And I'm sure they've told you, like, there's a couple of pretty big hitters that would have played for Castlehaven in the past that were like leading lights for the Cork county team, and there still are the Hurley brothers, for example, who just played for Cork in the last couple of weeks. They're down in Castlehaven. So have you been given a feel for, you know, what the inter-county setup is about? Like, these guys are kind of training 6-7 days a week, but still going into work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, playing in front of 80,000 people. Yeah,
no, it's amazing. And so, as I say, there's a few, and they keep talking about the game 20 years ago. And still disputing whether it was a goal or not, you know, whether it crossed the line with a shot at the post. And it was an amazing finish to a game. But so they want revenge. I'm just hoping I can give it careful.
Are there some basic managerial principles that you've already kind of got a sense you can transfer from one sport to the other? It doesn't really matter what sort of a team, what coach you're managing, but that you can just fall back on certain beliefs that you have as a manager you can implement here?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about, you know, I'm a big confidence man, you know, giving people confidence to perform. And so that's what I'll try to do with the boys, you know. But I've got a lot of help as well. I've got a few of the ex-players give me a hand with the coaching and being part of the setup. So, but no, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting.
What rule in particular was most confusing for you to kind of get your head around?
No, I didn't find it too confusing, really. It was, you know, I was surprised that the players, they tend to go for the shot over the post rather than going taking the 3-pointer on more, you know, trying to beat the keeper. But I suppose, you know, maybe one point is safer than 3. But and I suppose it depends on the state of the game whether you go them to try to get the 3 points, you know.
Well, there's the old phrase in GAA: take your points and the goals will come.
Is that what? I don't
know whether that stands up in reality, but you hear a lot of managers over the years would say
that was different. I thought there'd be more shooting at goal than putting it over the post, you know. But no, the technique, I was amazed at the technique of the players. You know, the skill, the volley of ball was fantastic. And I think, you know, soccer players could learn a lot from the way the technique of the way they, you know, their body position to get to hit volleys when they pass the ball and, you know, hitting 40-yard passes straight into someone's hands. I thought it was brilliant.
It's kind of the latest chapter, a very odd chapter in what's been an unbelievably varied managerial career, and you've done so much at all levels, from the lower leagues right up to the Champions League. And yet I guess the one job maybe people want to ask you about now is because we're in a World Cup year, and you've been watching how well England have done in Russia. Is that still an itch that you regret might now never be scratched, that you never did eventually get to manage England, despite managing at the highest level in European club football? Yeah,
because I came so close at that time, it looked like I was a certainty really to get the job, you know, in everybody's eyes, and you know, I was 10-1 on with the bookmakers, you know. It was.
This was when Capello needed to be replaced, was it?
Yeah, when I was at Tottenham. And then suddenly, you know, it sort of became public. Would I take the job? I think the people at Tottenham weren't best pleased that I said I would like to manage England when I was, you know, and I was still under contract at Tottenham, and I ended up, you know, suddenly looking like I had a choice of 2 fantastic jobs. Within about 4 months, I didn't have a job. It was quite an amazing turnaround, really. But that's how it goes. I didn't, I'm not one of them people that go away and, the night I was driving my car back, we just played at Tottenham that day and I think we beat West Brom 3-0 or whatever, and I was on my way home feeling great, and then the radio come on, there was a news flash and Roy Hodgson has just been announced as England's manager. Did come completely out of the blue. I had no idea that anything was going to, I thought that at that time that I was pretty sure to get the job.
So no one in the FA thought it might be courteous to at least give you a phone call and tell you that you hadn't got it?
Well, I never went for an interview, I suppose. They probably thought we got no right. They didn't interview me and they didn't interview Roy, as far as I know. They just made a decision, the board, whoever they were, decided that he was more suitable than me for the job. But that's their opinion. And
do you ever feel you got a fair crack at it, either when you were also touted for the job when Steve McLaren was sacked after failing to qualify for the Euros in 2008. And I know on both occasions, post McLaren and post Capello, there were issues happening off the field that you feel certainly didn't help your case.
No,
do you ever feel you got a proper go at it?
Probably not, but I don't know whether I was an FA man really. I think you have got to be a certain type. They are looking for, you've got to fit the mould a little bit. I think so. I think you've got to be a.
Do you mean like a brown noser?
No, I don't know. No, not necessarily. But I think you've just got to be that type who the FA. And I think sitting in an office at Soho Square or wherever the FA headquarters, I don't know if it would suit me. What I enjoy is being involved every day. I think seeing the players once every couple of 6 weeks or so. I don't know if I'd have gone crazy. I'm not an office person really, so that would have been a problem for me. But no, I just think you've got to be. I think if you look and Roy fitted the bill. He came through the FA, the old Charles used the coaching school. A lot of lads who sort of got their coaching badges very young. And he was one of those, and obviously went abroad and worked and had a good, so yeah, maybe that was, but that was probably. I always felt that deep down I was never sure that I would get it. I always felt there'd always be someone would, not see me as being the perfect England manager at that time.
And I guess there were probably people in your life, in your family, and amongst your friends that were convinced you had it.
Yeah.
And were probably in your ear the whole time, were they? Telling you, almost congratulating you before any news broke.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I had some funny stories actually. I had a boy who owns a local golf shop, bought me a present round and told me not to open it until he told me. And then he rang up one day and said, Harry, don't open that box. I've got another box for you. And then about 2 months later, he bought the other box round. And the other box, the day he bought the other box round, I lost my job at Tottenham. And what it was, I had a pair of England golf shoes that he told me not to open because Roy got the job. So he had me a pair of Tottenham shoes made. And when he bought the Tottenham shoes round, the day he bought the Tottenham shoes and dropped them off at my house, I was in London, lost my job at Tottenham. So I did say to him, look, I'll give you 10 grand not to buy me another pair of shoes. But he actually bought me another pair of QPR shoes that I left of my own accord there, so it wasn't a problem.
You mentioned how, maybe having to go and watch these endless amount of games as England manager, sitting in the stands with no control over what's happening, not being able to work with the players every day. Like, that's what you loved doing, wasn't it? I mean, that's what made you tick. Putting the tracksuit on and pulling the L boots out of the cupboard and getting stuck in.
Yeah, I think being around players every day was the buzz that I enjoyed most, Look, watching the games is not a problem. Saturdays and going to watch games or midweek, but I think just sitting around an office all day and a lot of, I don't know, it always struck me as a bit like being the Queen or when you've got to keep going to functions and public functions. I would find that very difficult, But no, listen, it's and it's a job that everybody's been slaughtered at some time. The England job, everybody has. Even Bobby Robson. People forget, the grief that Bobby got when he was alive.
There's no happy ending.
No. Whereas Gareth now, obviously, it's going great. Suddenly, everything's fantastic for him. And if we win the World Cup, he'll probably get a knighthood, which is great. I mean, that's how your life can turn, and it sums up the silly game that we're in. When you can win 5 or 6 games and you're the greatest thing in the world, you lose 5 or 6 games and you're useless. I mean, that is football management now.
And I mean, there are so many examples of you as a manager on that training pitch every day, making players better than they were when you first got your hands into them and got to spend time with them. And yet, a lot of people think of you, they think of that video where you're clearly very annoyed by this wheeler-dealer tag that a reporter throws at you. Do you think that perception of you takes away from some of the achievements that you've enjoyed as manager, beating the odds, bringing clubs to places maybe where they didn't feel they could ever be?
Yeah, I think what happened, with me, I always took over clubs that were at the bottom of the league when I took them. That's why you get a job. I started out at Bournemouth, so for me to get a job, at West Ham, they'd been relegated, and then they were, and then I'll go to Portsmouth, who have been in the bottom 5 about 4 years running. And when you go into them clubs, you've got to go and change the players. It's not that the previous manager was useless or whatever. The players, a good majority of them are not good enough. So you've got to go and change them. So that's why I would have to go and bring players in. So, you're wheeling. Of course, I've not gone in and thought, this team's finished in the bottom 6 or bottom 5 4 years running. I'm going to keep the same group. I can get them promoted. I couldn't do. No one could do that. Pep Guardiola can't walk in suddenly. No disrespect. Let's say he can't walk into Huddersfield and get them into the top 6 next year. He hasn't got a magic wand. It's about having good players. And I went in and I looked at the staff and thought I need to get a few decent change this group around.
But I guess every manager has to. Recruitment is such a major part of being a good manager.
Absolutely.
Is it the murkiness of the term that annoys you more than anything else? It implies, the wheeler-dealer phrase implies something else.
Because maybe I had a Cockney accent, people think, maybe it was, that's all part of it. But no, I was into coaching. I got my coaching badges when I was 21. So I was certainly into coaching. And I grew up under probably the best, and still the best coach I've ever seen in my life was Ron Greenwood, who managed us at West Ham. And I grew up with great coaches. The whole West Ham Football Club, when I was a 15-year-old, when I left school, we'd sit in the cafe and we'd listen to Noel Cantwell, and we'd listen to Dave Sexton, and we'd listen, Malcolm Allison, and all these great managers who played at West Ham, went on to become great managers. John Bond. They were all there at the time. Frank O'Farrell was previous, who managed Man United. It was a club that produced managers and people who understood coaching and really were into great students of the game. And I grew up with them people, so it wasn't like I'd sort of, just thought it's all about wheeling and dealing. I love coaching. I used to go into schools coaching every afternoon of the week when I was a player at West Ham. We used to get £2.50 an afternoon, but when I finished training, I would go straight into schools in the area around West Ham and coach the kids. I used to do 4 afternoons a week, and I was only like 20 years of age when I was doing that. So I'd always loved coaching. So when people, you're not a coach, or you're not, as though you're just a wheeler-dealer, I found it very disrespectful, really.
Yeah, I doubt it doesn't help you when people keep throwing that video around either. It's probably quite annoying.
Yeah.
I always remember Alex Ferguson talking about Paul Gascoigne as one of the real regrets of his managerial career when he sees where Gascoigne's life went and the path that he went down. I guess Ferguson, being the kind of guy he is, always feels that he could have maybe put the arm around the shoulder and prevented him from falling into some of the the pits that he did in years to. And the parallel for me, from your point of view, is to Canio. That there was an awful lot of managers who wouldn't have touched him with a barge pole.
No.
So why did you? Clearly the talent was there, but surely there must have been party that thought, this is going to be more trouble than it's worth.
No, I thought he was a genius, and I used to watch him when he was at Celtic, and he was like a little kid playing in the playground. He'd run and take a corner, and he'd want to take the throw. He was just wanted to win. And suddenly, when he became available, after he pushed the referee, Mr. Alcock, over, and he got the ban, and I just thought, no, this is amazing talent. And I, remember reading the news. One guy wrote a big article about I'm walking a tightrope without a safety net underneath, signing to Canio, and it was a gamble. But the chairman at West Ham, when I said I want to sign to Canio, he went anybody but him, anybody, Harry. I know we need a striker, but anybody but the Canio. And now I brought him in, and he was a genius and become one of the truly great players in the history of West Ham Football Club. You know, he was that good.
Because we've already talked about recruitment, the so-called wheeling and dealing, but you also have to, the other major part of being a manager is getting the best out of the players available to you. Is he one of your proudest achievements? Because really, in a lot of ways, he probably was more settled under you and played the best football of his career in that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew how to handle him, and I knew he was always, every day, he was a time bomb waiting to go off, really. I mean, it was one of those, but you had to, you know, I used to, with having a nine-a-side perhaps at the end of training, and I'd make sure I'd put Stuart Pearce on his team. I'd put like Stevie Lomas on his team, and maybe Nigel, anybody who might kick him or, you know, upset him. I used to, you know, and that was how I used to manage him a little bit, you know.
Because he could go off that easily.
He could go off, yeah, if someone booted him or he'd kick off, and he'd, you know, suddenly it'd all be off, and he'd be, you know, it could be a bust up. And so, yeah, you know, you had to think it out very carefully with him and keep him sweet, really, as best you could, you know. But I loved him as a player. He was a genius. His ability was up there with the best players I've ever seen.
There's a couple, before I ask kind of what is the next chapter for you work-wise, a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Certainly people of my age, and I'm not a young fella anymore, I'm pushing 40, but when I think of Harry Redknapp, I just think managerial stints at the various clubs, and I would even remember like your time at Bournemouth way back in the early to mid 80s. But no one associates your playing career with you as a person, and yet you've 7 seasons at West Ham, you've played with 3 World Cup winners and Martin Peters and Bobby Moore and Geoff Hurst. What does it annoy you sometimes that no one ever really talks about Harry Redknapp, the footballer?
Well, I suppose it's so long ago now. It's you know, the years go by. Unless you're very old, you was like, you know, I left school at 14, just before my 15th birthday, and joined West Ham. And I was fortunate. You know, I played, we had, say, 3 players that played in the World Cup winning team. And
but even in the 80s and 90s, when I was really getting into football, no one ever referenced your playing career.
No, I don't know really. It's, you know, people. But no, I mean, that was what I loved. Obviously, was the playing. And I was fortunate enough to play in a great group of players at West Ham. We played some fantastic football under Ron Greenwood, without really achieving what we should have achieved with 3 players in the World Cup winning team, in it. But no, I think, you know, whatever people. But looking back now, as I say, the generation now, you know me as a manager, really.
And when you see kind of the issues that Ron had to deal with after he left West Ham and went on to take the England job, maybe that was the first kind of warning for you. Well, that's how quickly things can go sour. Oh
yeah, I mean, when you do look at it over the years, the good people that have been absolutely destroyed by the job, you know. There's been so many of them, really. And probably I look back on it, probably the big, you know, Terry Venables was the one who I felt would have been a great England manager. I mean, Euro '96, he was fantastic, but again, they couldn't wait to get rid of him, really, for whatever reason. He didn't fit the mould of what they were. He wouldn't fit the mould of an England manager, but he was the most talented by a million miles for me.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's not exactly a good news story, but the crash at Italia 90. For those that aren't aware of it, you were travelling around Italy watching the World Cup, and you were involved in a very serious road collision that involved a fatality, and you were unconscious for a couple of days. When something like that happens, like how different is your outlook on life afterwards in comparison to before? Or maybe you take certain things for granted and you just kind of go along your merry way. When you're that close to death, did it change the way you looked on the world, both professionally and personally?
Yeah, I mean, that night was, I'd been to watch the Republic of Ireland play Italy when Schillaci scored. And we came out and sort of got in the car heading for home and making plans for next day, going to watch England and Cameroon play. And we had a driver, but 3 young kids hit us head on coming the other way. They all got killed, these young boys. I think they were only 18, 17. My pal got killed, Brian Tyler, who's my chief executive at Bournemouth. It's incredible. When you look at it, I don't remember anything about it. I don't remember seeing the car coming or anything. I can't remember one single thing about it. But Yeah, I think you know, for a while, I thought, oh, I'm never going to, you know, football now. I'm never, but when, you know, before, you know, within about 8 weeks, I went back to work and, you know, turned up at a game at Reading to watch Bournemouth play while I was still the manager. I wasn't supposed to go to any games, but I got a pal of mine to take me, and I sat in the back of the crowd with a hood up and a bobble hat on, and you know, and went in the dressing room after the game to give the goalkeeper a bit of a rollicking for throwing 2 terrible goals in. You know, I think he thought, oh no, he's back. You know, but.
I guess when you're a manager nowadays in particular, there's always that fear in your mind that I'm going to get the sack. This is not going to end well. I'm only 2 poor results, as you say, from the rug being pulled out from underneath you. But maybe when you've gone through an experience like that, those kind of things don't maybe matter as much.
No, not so much. No, obviously, you know, you every day you look back and just realise just how lucky you were to survive something like that. But it makes you wonder. You know, you just never know what's going to happen in life. You know, 1 minute. You know, life is going along great. Next minute, bang! It can all turn so quickly, can't it? So you've got to keep enjoying the good days, and I try to do that as much as I can. You know.
You're the guy who brought the likes of Keenan to Tottenham. You're the guy who brought the Canio to West Ham. Really successful signings. You're also the guy who signed Florian Radicchioia for West Ham.
Yeah.
So have I already mentioned the best and the worst signings there, or is there another road you'd like to go down in answer to that
I've
question?
made some bad signings over the years, you know. But everybody has. I mean, that's what I think. When you're at a club like, say, at West Ham, where if you spend £1 million, it's got to be a, you know. Whereas Fergie he bought a few Stoomers at Man United that no one ever mentioned. You know, I've got great respect for Alex Ferguson. He was incredible what he did at Man United.
We're talking about the Jambas and the Clebersons and the Varons of this world.
Everybody's done it. Everybody's done it. But when you're winning, you lose. It don't get mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, when you're winning and things are going. When you're struggling, oh, he wasted £750,000 on him or whatever. It gets noticed. You know, it's a big signing at that club, and the team are not. So that is the difference, really. But no, I've certainly signed a few bad ones, you know, over the years. But I've signed some good ones, and that's how it is. Everybody's in the same boat, really.
What was the best one?
Do you know, it's strange, isn't it? I signed a centre half that no one would ever have heard of. I was manager of Bournemouth. Bournemouth had never been out of the third or fourth division in 100 years. Never ever been promoted. And I was a young manager, and I signed a fella called John Williams, a big centre half from Port Vale, for £20,000. And when I signed him, John Rose, the manager of Port Vale, he said, Harry, he said, he'll get you promoted. He said, he's unbelievable. He said, but they had to sell him. They couldn't pay the wages, Port Vale, and I absolutely nicked him for 20 grand. And he come in, and I think we only lost 1 game while he was out of 28 when he came from the end to the end of the season. He was a leader, centre half, scored goals. He just pulled everything together. We won the league, and we got promoted for the first time. So I always look back at Willow, and I love him as a boy. He's about 24 stone now, unfortunately, John. He still does a bit of commentating for Bournemouth games. But he was a lovely, lovely character, and he was a great signing, but he'd be one that no one had ever heard of.
Yeah.
But he put me on the road, really, without Willow. And we won the league that year, and it sort of set me on the road to a long career in management.
It's 35 years ago, so it's clearly an outstanding memory for you.
Yeah.
Your latest job was the Birmingham job last year.
Yeah.
Are you on the slow road towards retirement? Are you still available for the phone to ring?
It came along, yeah, because I love it. I don't think I could ever say no. You know, if someone rang me up and said, do you want to have a go and do, if it was something worth doing, I would do it, you know. Yeah, I still miss that going in every day. I have to be doing something. I'm not a person, every day I'm somewhere doing something, going somewhere, you know, and that's what keeps me going, really. I think if I'm not one for sitting indoors watching TV all day, or you know, that would kill me. I have to be out, busy, you know. And I can't play golf every day. The weather don't let you play golf. I'd play every day if I could, but so I know I need to be doing something, and you know, going into. I like being around footballers, you know, and even young guys. I still think there's a lot more can be done to help young players. You know, I think that there's not enough interest. We've got to start producing more young players at football clubs, you know, and I think there's so even going to talk to people at football clubs, whether it's the youth coaches or whatever. And I think people get discarded too easily at a certain age when they've got experience and they can be a big help at a football club. And I think even as a buffer now between a busy chairman, like there are a lot of busy chairmans now, and a younger manager, somebody who can go in and sort of be around and a sounding board for a young manager. Someone they can talk to.
Not quite a director of football, but something in between.
Somebody, in between. It's not the money. It would be something that I would enjoy doing, This year I'll probably go and watch Derby play quite a lot. I'll go and watch Frank play. He's my nephew, and so I see myself going to Derby and watching, at least, quite a few games there and following his fortunes this year.
Has he asked your advice much?
No, I speak to him. Obviously, his dad's he's very close to Frank Senior, who's my brother-in-law, and so he's got a great, Frank knows the game inside out anyway. But no, I'm always there, and I do speak to Frank. When he got the job, I actually spoke to the chairman at Derby before I even asked Frank if he was interested. I rang the chairman at Derby and said, "Listen, take Frank Lampard as your manager." And he was a bit surprised at the idea of the chairman at Derby. But I finally talked him round to it and managed to get him to have a meeting with Frank. And after he met Frank, he went, "My God," he said, "it's fantastic."
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Well, look, we may see if things go well, if Castlehaven wipe the floor at Aaron's Isle, we might see on the sidelines of a GAA pitch at some stage in the future.
I'm ready. If I can't be that Italian, I'm in trouble. But no, seriously, he's a great guy. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I love him. He's great company as well. We'll have a few glasses of wine, I'm sure, and we'll have a bit of a crack. But I've got to win. I've got to win. I can't lose. If I lose, I'm going to be devastated.
Your reputation will be in tatters.
Well, I'll never be back in Castlehaven again. And they're going to, as I said, I'm going to get a car ready in case we're getting beat. I'm going to have to get out of there a bit lively.
Harry, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure,
Thanks so
lovely
much.
talking to you.
Really appreciate it.
Top man,
Thank you.
well done.